This is the Parents in Sport podcast. Amazing guests, honest conversations, topics that matter.
Welcome to the Parents in Sport podcast. I am your host, Gordon MacLelland, and I'm delighted to be joined today by mum, coach, and former Great Britain 100-metre hurdler, Jacqui Agyepong. Jacqui, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, in today's episode, Jacqui, we're going to talk about specifically around coaching your own children and the experiences that you've gone through there. Now, I obviously remember you from back in the day on the TV when I was growing up and cheering you on. But can you tell our listeners a little bit more about your athletics career life since and what you're up to now?
Thank you. Well, I started, I suppose, the age of 14, and I got into athletics. Actually, not from my parents; it was from my brother, who is 5 years older, and he's a triple jumper, and he used to have to drag me and my younger brother to the track. So that's where I started at 14, and just propelled myself forward, did all the work, and got to my first, senior international at the age of about 21 or something. I can't even remember. So long ago. Yeah. But anyway, so I made the 92 Olympics and then went on. So before that was the European Championships, 92 Olympics, and then the 94 Commonwealth Games and Europeans, which I made a final, Commonwealth medal, silver medal. And then the 96 Olympics I made, held the British record indoors. And so I had a great career in sport.
Yeah, interesting that you sort of really started to develop that at 14. What had you done prior to that? Had you played lots of other things, or was it very much you just sort of turned up and it worked for you?
Yeah, I suppose it did. In school, I was good at everything. And those kids that no one wants to be up against because you're going to get beaten. I just enjoyed sport. In the playground. I always say to my kids playing kiss chase, and the boys could never catch me unless they were really good looking, in year 6. So it was all that kind of thing, And sport was great. I loved it, and it almost felt like a natural progression into it. Being good and being confident at something sort of pushed me into doing it further.
Yeah, and did you, presumably your older brother sort of pulled you up a little bit there, did he, trying to sort of chase the older sibling?
Yeah. I mean, because he was really good. He was really good in sport. So it almost just felt, well, if he can do it, I'm sure I can. I remember him going to an international for basketball for like the school's county. And he was travelling all the way to Italy. And I was like, oh my God. No, actually it was in the Caribbean, I think. And I was like, oh my God, if he gets to go all around the world. So I suppose that was, a really good excuse to want to sort of, be pulled by him.
Yeah, so, fantastic. And then the sort of athletic career finished. Did you get straight into coaching once you finished, or did you have a bit of time out?
I'd always done coaching within my career, because they had the what was it called? The London. They had some, the organisations that would get athletes to help coach in schools, and you go around the country, sort of promoting athletics and promoting sports. And so I was doing it within my career, and it was nice to give back, because you were sort of looked at as, oh my God, how did you get into it? And kids were interested. So I was doing a bit of coaching during my career, and then when I was retiring, Connie Henry Academy, she set up the academy, and so I was coaching with her, and it's because I had the qualifications already, so I could almost just transfer straight into it. So it was a natural progression.
And how's that coaching journey been? Do you think you've sort of changed and evolved over the years, coming out of the environments that you were used to, and then how you needed to adapt, I guess, to sort of coaching younger people? Was there a bit of finding your feet?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think it made me realise what my coach used to go through, when I was younger. It's like, oh my God, is this what he had to deal with? Prepubescent teenagers and, boys and girls, and, it was like manic, you had to sort of control them and, also nurture them. And there's so many things that go into coaching. It's not just, right, here's your training, get on with it. You almost have to play mum, dad, coach, physio, the osteo, the psychiatrist, all in one. And, I learned so much. And, having to hold back, all the things that go into, the politics that go into coaching. So you almost have to sit back and think, God, can I do it? And you have, I treat every child as an individual. I don't put them into one box, because we're all so different that you can't coach everyone under one umbrella. You have to, almost take a branch from here and a branch from there and feed each one differently. Yeah. So yeah, I did learn a lot sort of going into coaching and having to sort of teach myself. I'm always learning, and it's fun to do it, because I like a challenge. So I get someone who's quite challenging and no one wants them, so I'll take them. And it's like, oh my God, what have I done? But it's great. The respect you have for them and the respect they give back is just rewarding.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that, some of those things that you talked about whenever anybody gets into coaching, actually, you can't really be that prepared for it. You have to learn and evolve as you go, don't you? And you're almost learning on the job whilst trying to show everybody that you really know what you're doing.
It's like parenting. It's exactly like parenting. You go in there, everyone gives you a long list of the things you have to do to prepare for parenting. It's exactly like coaching. Nothing can prepare you for it, because the individual you get is what you have to work with, not the event or the sport that you're in. It's the individual.
Yeah, and I think that, as you say there, it's not just a coaching thing, isn't it? It's as parents also try and adopt the same philosophy with each of their children, because it worked for one of them. We had Andrew Guy on this podcast talking about James, the swimmer. And James had a younger brother who they thought was as good as James was going to be, and they sort of tried to do the same things, and he felt the pressure of it, and he ended up just stopping the sport. And now he's a very successful coach. So it's great that he was able to stay within the sport. But I'm sure there'll be lots of parents who thought, well, that worked for my first child, so that's going to work for numbers 2, 3, and 4. But we don't.
No, you don't. And it's the same. You have a child and you think, this is what I did, and so they should be able to do it. It doesn't work like that. No. It's complete. You almost have to flip it, 365 and just start again. And sometimes they're further ahead, sometimes they're not as far ahead, sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. It's just that individual. You've got to coach your child as totally completely from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm guessing over the years you've become slightly more patient as that journey evolved, have you? Or you've had to become more patient?
Well, both. Some days I wake up and I think, oh, that was a good week. And then the next week's like, I'm going to adopt the same thing. And it's like, no, this ain't working. Start again.
Brilliant.
So, no, it's every day is learning. You learn as you go on. You learn. It's a daily thing. It's not a, you can't prepare for it. You have a schedule, but you have to be able to flip in and out when it comes to coaching your child.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's dig a little bit deeper into obviously your coaching of your own children. So obviously, I'm guessing you started in a young age with them in the sort of garden, just what we would deem as play before it became more formal.
Well, they were quite lucky actually, because I was coaching. Like I said, I was coaching before I had them.
Okay.
And then when I had my kids, I was going down, I was taking them to the track whilst I was coaching. So they were able to sort of see what I was doing already. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because they almost take it for granted and think, oh, you know, I don't want to do that, you know, because they see you shouting at people or they see you giving instructions. And like you were saying, when you're parent, you've got to be able to separate yourself from being a parent and being a coach. And when you're at the track with them and they're young, they're running around and it's fun. But the minute it gets a bit more serious, you have to almost teach them differently. And it's hard for them and for yourself to be able to separate that parent, you know, athlete. Yeah. It's really difficult. Parent daughter or parent son. It's really difficult.
Yeah, and just to all our listeners listening, Jacqui is interviewed in our book Two Hats, which very much sums up what we're talking about here, and the difficulties of managing, you know, when you're mum or dad, when you're the coach, and there's so many complexities involved in that, with how we speak to our children, how we approach it. And in many cases, I don't know if this has been the same for you, Jacqui, that we actually sort of discriminate a little bit more against our own children because we sort of expect a bit more from them than maybe we do of other athletes. How's that been?
Oh, I think that's been the toughest thing, because like you said, you discriminate because you expect them to see what you're doing, but also other people's expectations of your child. They think, oh, well, your mum's a coach, your mum was an international athlete, you should be able to do this. So that puts the extra pressure on them to perform. And, you know, they can take it one way or the other. They might stay in the sport or they might leave, because the pressures of trying to play, you know, two people can be difficult. Yeah. So that is I think that in itself is tough. I started coaching I didn't coach my daughter initially. And the reason I started coaching at my athletics track with Shaftesbury Barnet was because, you know, I love my club. Every athlete you speak to will love where they came from and will go back there. And Brian Smith has always been asking me, come back and coach. I'm like, no, I'm too busy. And then when I wanted my daughter to go into sport, because I think sport is such a great thing for kids, you know, in terms mentally, physically, everything, you know, it sets you up for life. So I went down to the track and I took her down there, and then I said, fine, okay, I'll do 1 day a week. And I didn't coach her in the beginning, because I needed to separate myself from, and I wanted to know if she really wanted to do it. I didn't want to be the person to say, you have to do this. You know, she was running at school and she was doing, I said, oh, why don't we go down the track and do a bit of running? You know, sort of just trying to, well, you know, my mission was to get her into athletics. So I took her and a friend down to the track, and they coached with another one of the coaches down there. And she was enjoying it. And she said, oh, Mum, I want to do 2 days a week. Because the coach was also saying, oh, you need to progress a bit more. You need to train a little bit more. You need to, you know, get into it. And she was enjoying it. So then I thought, great. So that was about 6 months. And then I was coaching some hurdlers. So she was doing sprinting, because I think she was around 11 or 12. And I was coaching some hurdlers because they didn't have a hurdles coach. And then she said, oh, can I join in? And I was like, okay. So I made her almost choose to want to come and join me. I didn't want to be the person to say, you know, some parents would say, you have to do this and you have to do that. It doesn't work, like you were saying about the coach earlier. They have to want to do it. So it was her choice to do the athletics, and it was her choice to come and be coached by myself.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, parents who do take on coaching their own children have to understand that our children love it on the whole when we're involved, particularly at a younger age. I just think it's really cool that mum or dad are involved. Perhaps as they get a little bit older, it's maybe not quite as cool. And you're going to have to work your way through these stages if you do it for a longer period of time. But I think you've also always got to bear in mind that ultimately to them, you're their parent and not their coach.
Yeah.
And it's
definitely. I think that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? You know, it's all around these conversations, isn't it? When you were saying there, the expectation on your daughter just because she was your daughter, and I know that Liz McColgan, you know, Ailish felt very much the same way, that, you know, when anybody ever met her as a young athlete, it was, oh well, you must be good because of mum, and and they've sort of worked really hard on the, it's Ailish who's the individual now, and Liz has had her time, and
Exactly.
I said to Liz, I think, you know, actually they've achieved that, because my children know who Ailish McColgan is, but they don't have a clue who Liz is. So that it's worked.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The name runs on, definitely.
Yeah. So, what have been the best bits, do you think, of coaching your daughter? What have you enjoyed the most out of it?
Seeing her develop, you know, and developing a friendship in the athletics community, developing confidence, which every parent thrives for their child to be confident, outgoing, you know, fun. And she's got all of that. And just seeing her develop into this, you know, proper athlete is just that for me has been the best bit.
Yeah. And how old is she now, Jacqui?
14.
Okay. Yeah. So it's and I think you raise a really good point there around, if you notice in lots of these episodes in season 1, there's an awful lot of people who've talked about developing the whole individual, and I think it's really important that we're conscious as parents that sport's this amazing vehicle to equip our young people with all these life skills, and probably still is one of the safest environments to learn so much. And you'll notice, even with all the top guests we've had on here, former top athletes, people who've achieved at the top, they're still talking about their child as the holistic side. It's very rarely do they talk about what they're athletically achieving. And you've just done that again. You've just done that as well.
I'm on the right tracks then.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You can talk about the times in a minute. So they're the best bits. Biggest challenges then, or share a few stories with us when you found it really tough, or maybe your daughters found it really tough, and maybe what are those some points of conflict there? Is it home going to the track? Is it something that happened on the track? Is it because you expect more and she really can't be bothered today? What have been
all of that?
What have been some of the biggest challenges for you?
All of the above, as you said. I think coming, you know, going to the track, like, you know, she'll finish school and then we have to get ready, go to the track, and she might not feel it, she might not be up for it. That is really challenging. Trying to prop your child up to go to the track and to be able to coach, you know, 10, 20, 30 other kids at the same time. You've got that one person who is just winding you up, you know. So that is challenging. It took a while for us to get a very good balance, and it took a lot of talking, a lot of shouting, a lot of arguing, and also she's a teenager.
Yeah.
So that is so tough, and I do feel for her, and you know, because you have mum ringing in your ears on the left, and then you have your coach, who is also your parent, ringing you on the right. And how do you sort of remove yourself from one into the other? You know, as a teenager, you know, all the hormones, the emotions, you're up one minute, you're down the next. You know, try and have fun with your friends and it becomes disruptive for the group. You're trying to, you know, grow and develop and build your confidence around people, and you've got this person who you go home with telling you, don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's been the challenging part. I think trying to remove yourself as a parent to be a coach, trying to take them down to coach when their moods are up or down, trying to control, you know, everything going on. If they've had an up day and you've got to go training, if they've had a down day, so I think that's been the challenging part, just trying to mirror the two, but with a really good level and a balance.
And how have you how have you sort of worked your way through that? Because I'm always really conscious in these things that what work for some people don't work for everybody, and it's all in everybody's context because everybody's different, as we alluded to at the beginning of the episode. Have you had to sort of sit down at home and have lots of chats through all this, or particularly those days where she doesn't want to go training? How do you handle it? Does, you know, what do you have a set way of trying to
It's taken a long time for us to get to a point where, you know, it was actually my son who's 10, and we went on holiday last year, a couple of years ago, and he would say, if anyone's upset, can we just have 10 minutes time out? You know, so whoever it is, whether you know it's mum, dad, brother or sister or whoever, you just walk away for 10 minutes, sit in your own corner, and then you either come back or you just, you know, you walk around. And that's what has really helped me to deal with her as an athlete, as a parent and a coach and an athlete. So if she's really upset or she's not feeling it, she'll just walk off. And I have to leave her to get over it.
Yeah. Because
it can become confrontational. And likewise, I'll say the same. I'll say, you know, just give me 5 minutes, and then, you know, and I'll say it in a nice way. Sometimes I scream. And also, what's worked for the both of us is that I've created a really lovely group, and I won't allow any confrontation. I don't allow any haters or anyone to, you know, come in, and I don't allow any bad mouthing or, you know, and if there's an argument, we settle it there and then, whether it's one athlete or the other, whether it's an athlete I don't know or it's my athlete. I will always get the two kids or teenagers or whoever together and say, this was wrong, you guys need to deal with it and get over it. So what we do is you leave everything on the playing fields and start again. And that's what I found really helps me also in terms of my coaching my daughter. If there's any confrontations, we don't necessarily deal with it on the track, but we will walk away and give each other some time to get over it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some absolutely golden information there. And I think about our wider work and not just coaching our own children. So any parents listening, that ability to give space is really important. And the timing of some of those conversations we have is absolutely key, because if we go in at the wrong time, we know full well it's just going to turn into a major argument and a major row. And I think whatever will work for you and you understanding your own child, you know, we talk lots about the car journey home being a huge potential danger area. You know, you've got to have strategies with your own children that allow your relationship to work. And also in there, Jacqui, I love the fact that you've set the tone in our coach education piece around parental engagement and the other bits of coach ed that we do. Coach behavior and modeling is so important, and setting the tone for your group allows that group to buy into those values. And actually, it probably allows parents to buy into those values as well, because they see what they are getting and they are confident that that environment is there. And I think that reassures parents.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure kids' parents will kill them, but you know, you get kids who are quite erratic and they come in and they want to control, and you have kids who are very quiet and meek, and you have to try and get them involved. So yeah, I've got such a lovely group, and you know, it's just it, and I'm learning, you know, and because I treat each athlete individually, I learn more from them than, you know, they're learning from me. How do I engage them? How do I train them? How do I educate? And even the parent. You know, I have a child who she has what's she got? I can't remember anyway. You know, so we have to monitor her sugar levels and we have to do all of this, and you know, it's constant. But I treat her, and you know, the parents now have the confidence that she's okay with me, because I'm looking out for her every single minute. You know, where is she? How you feel? Each individual, how you feeling? You know, and you can, you know, when a kid is trying to get out of running, you know, they think we've been there. Oh, I'm so tired. I said, yeah, okay. Well, you should stay off your phone and get back in there. You know. So
I think that's where, you know, it's great when you can pull on those life experiences. You know, I've got a background in education. I'm still a sort of director of sport in the school, and brilliant. I can almost say to the children, I know exactly what you're thinking of doing next, because I've been there, the t-shirt, and I've done it. So actually, should we just save the pain of anybody you getting into trouble with me? And I think we've become not a little bit uncool, but I know with Denise yesterday, it was very funny, where they don't even think she's any good.
Yeah, I know.
So how are your two with you? Do they recognise that Mum was actually a really good athlete, or are they really not bothered?
No, I think they at the beginning, I think my daughter was a little bit, this is not cool, you know, my mum's, I think just the whole thing, she didn't quite feel it, but now she's not bothered. But I think when her friends mention it, then she's like, oh yeah, okay. And my son, you know, he's 10, so he still thinks, yeah, you know, my mum can beat your mum in a race. And I don't do sports days, because you get some parent, you know, who come out guns blazing, you know, they've trained all year, and they end up tearing a hamstring and taking me with them. So I that's my rule is I don't do no sports days. But they're okay. But I think she doesn't sort of talk about it, but she's proud. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all try to relive our youth a little bit. I was saying, I don't know if you've spoken to Denise recently, because Denise has damaged her hamstring in trying to prove to her children how good she was.
But the thing is, Denise, I said to her, you need to stretch. I'm always giving her, I said, don't go up against. And she's got very competitive, just like her husband, her kids are super competitive. Yeah. And, you know, so what if Mum was this and that? You know, they're going to take her on. Yeah. So I told her, don't take them on. I run 20 metres, and then when they're killing me, that's when I pull up.
You've got it all worked out. Now, brilliant. Now, when obviously you've got a really good group at the moment that you're working with, which includes your daughter. How's your relationship been with other parents around the group? You alluded to some of those pressures that your daughter maybe felt. Was that coming from other parents, or is it more coming from the children? Have you had to deal with anything along the journey where you're just conscious that you feel like your daughter's in the sort of firing line a little bit because of who she is? Yeah. I mean, what can I do about that? You know, I mean, unfortunately, you know, we are human beings and we're all competitive, and, you know, just like when you go to sports days, like, yeah, you better make sure you beat that child, you know. Yeah. So what I say to her is, you've done the best you can, but make sure everything you do is 100%. You know, if you're training, train 100%, whether it's quality or quantity, give it 100%. And, you know, as long as when you go out there, you give it your all, you know, there's nothing more you can do. Some parents and kids, I've not really had it, but I've been very fortunate. But I know it happens because, you know, your child, there's always a child better than you, and you train kids and they all develop differently. Their child gets better than yours, and, you know, it's great. But I think, you know, I'm just trying to develop that mental side of her, which I think is so important. That she, you know, you have to hold your own and don't take anything personally. Don't take what people say literally. You know, it's all about you. And as long as you go out there and you do your best, but make sure that you're happy with what you've done, rather than, you know, someone saying something and you're, you know, that's made you lose the race. So I work more on trying to develop the mental side as well as the physical, because I think that's when it can all go to pot. Yeah, absolutely. And so many times in this season of podcasts, when we've talked to people with the sporting background, and it's such a corny phrase, or we'll see it as corny, where it's processes rather than outcomes, and actually controlling what we can control is really important. And unfortunately in society at the moment, or parents who maybe don't have that sporting background who are perhaps listening, or even coaches, is that the success isn't always in the outcome, because in every race 7 people have to lose, right?
Exactly.
And it's the same in the swimming pool. And actually by making our athletes and our children understand that actually if you've done the best you can, if you've gone through the processes the best you can, actually that's where we are today, and then we move on and wipe the slate clean and go again.
I mean, I'm not all for everyone's a winner, because like you said, someone has to win and others have to lose, but it's how you deal with it, it's how you come out of it and want to try and win next time and try and be better next time, and recover from that and know that you've done your role. And if you haven't, then go and process, what did I do wrong and how can I do right next time, but so sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is. I mean, it's a fascinating conversation, because it's not easy to manage that, because everything we even see on the TV in society is driven to the winner. Nobody remembers who came third at the last Football World Cup. I mean, somebody will be shouting at the screen, who knows, because the stats are, or whatever. But ultimately, nobody remembers who ran second behind Usain Bolt every time he broke the world record.
That's right.
But everybody knows who Usain Bolt is. And
exactly.
I think it's difficult for children, even when we explain it really well, to understand it's about their own self-development that's the most important thing at play.
It really is.
But that's difficult to get across. But I think in our behaviours as parents and coaches, I think we need to be showing what we really value by the way we communicate all the time, so it becomes a common thread that they almost are getting the praise and encouragement for those life skills and those processes, rather than us saying nothing when we see them, and then we only say something good when they win, for example, because that shows them that we only care about winning.
Exactly. Yeah. You've got to deal with the ups and the downs. You have to deal with that. Definitely.
Looking back, Jacqui, conscious of time, we've got a couple of questions. Looking back over your sort of coaching now and coaching your own daughter, is there anything that you would have changed now, just with the benefit of hindsight? Anything that you would have done differently at any stage?
Like I said, we talk, but I would have started that process earlier. But like I said, it's very hard, because everyone's an individual, and if I'd done it earlier, would it have worked? I don't know. So you just have to keep learning and just not keep repeating the mistakes or the things that are not working. You almost have to find something new to do, even if it's out of the box. I mean, there is no parenting skill, book.
No.
So there is no coaching book. I mean, obviously we have guidelines and we have to follow to certain things. But I think as an individual, you have to see what works for them and just keep developing. Yeah,
and there's no such thing as a perfect sports parent, and there's no such thing as a perfect sports coach.
Exactly.
But I do think the ability for everybody in the sports industry to reflect is really important. I think people have quite enjoyed being on this podcast, because it's allowed them to go through some of the things that they've done on their journeys and say, oh I hadn't really thought about that, because we sometimes don't get the time to stop and reflect.
Not at all. 3 months of lockdown has given me a lot of time to reflect.
Have you decided you're brilliant now, Jacqui?
Yeah, I'm going to hang up my shoes now. I've done my job.
Excellent. Now, look, last question then, Jacqui. On the spot, for any parents who are thinking about coaching their children, or any parents who are currently coaching their children, what are Jacqui's 3 top tips?
Oh God. I would definitely keep developing yourself, whether it's getting qualifications, going on courses, because it's all about developing a community and talking to other people, just like, yourselves. And, I can't wait to listen to the podcast to get information from all the other coaches and athletes, tips on how they deal with it as well. That's 1. 2 would be to, allow them to talk. Allow your child to explain to you what is going right or what is going wrong. So they teach you, they're also coaching you how to coach. And 3, I just say enjoy it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself for them to be the best. Don't put too much pressure on them to be the best. If they really want it, they'll develop, and you will be on that path with them. But it has to be fun, and you have to run with them, even if it's, give them challenges that you can't achieve, but, makes them feel great. It's, you want to make them feel great. And I think that's important.
Fantastic. Jacqui Agyepong, thank you so much for joining us on the Parents in Sport podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Gordon. It's been brilliant.
Thank you for listening. Check us out at parentsinsport.co.uk.